Hello, welcome back to History Home Learning. I hope you guys are all still happy and healthy and staying safe at home. I don't know about you, but I feel like this situation has gone on forever. So can't wait to be back now. Hopefully it'll be really soon. Well, today's lesson is going to be about why Whitechapel was so hard for the police to police. So hard for the police to control things in Whitechapel. So there are several reasons for this. We've done a little bit about what Whitechapel was like, and lots of those things do contribute. So for example, we know there was a high population of immigrants. Lots of people were coming in to find work, and there was tensions there, as you know, sometimes there can be today. So for example, if an Irish family moved into let's say an apartment in the Peabody estate instead of somebody who had already lived in Whitechapel, then that could cause tensions, can cause arguments. We also know that immigrants tended to stick to their own communities. They didn't mix in very well. Partly was due to different cultures, partly due to language barriers. And again, that's more problems for residents, more problems for the police to deal with. So it was difficult for police to control lots of the immigration problems because of a language barrier. So for example, if you were an immigrant from Eastern Europe, you're not going to speak, if any, English at all. And the police certainly didn't speak any other language apart from, you know, their Cockney English, as you can imagine a Whitechapel policeman might be talking like. So that was a problem, number one. There were also problems with protests. So there'd been a financial crash as well, and lots of people were out of work. Lots of people were even resorting to stealing to eat. There was a housing crisis, lots of homelessness. In 1888, the year that Jack the Ripper murdered the women, there was an all-time high of unemployed people and homeless people. There was hundreds and hundreds of people camped out in Trafalgar Square overnight. So huge economic and housing crisis. So obviously that's going to lead to more crimes. You're hungry, you don't have any money, you steal to eat. Okay, petty crimes is what it's called, minor crimes. So that's another kind of thing that would add to those crimes. But there were also lots of protests because of this unemployment, because of the economic situation as well. And you can imagine today, we know police are trained in how to control riots. They have the right equipment, they have riot shields, proper almost like armour if it gets into a violent situation. Victorian police didn't have any of that, and they didn't have training in how to control the riots. So lots of them were just completely out of control, and people even died in them as well. So pretty awful times, and really difficult for the police. And remember, there aren't actually that many police at the time, like numbers of police. So if you've got a big riot, it's going to be really hard to control that. Also, we talked about the Fenians and how they were very anti-Britain at that time because they wanted to break away from British rule in Ireland. We know they had a protest. There was some terrorist acts. So all the police had loads of stuff to deal with. Another issue was gang crime. So there were lots of different groups of people, almost like turf wars, I suppose you would call it. Like, this is my area, stay out. If anyone has seen West Side Story, you can imagine that. Yeah, I don't know if you have, that might be a bit old. But yeah, so gangs were problems. And the police were they were like, you know, trying to track down people committing these gang crimes, but you're probably going to rely on people to be interviewed for them. And you can imagine if you're like average Cockney Joe in London, you don't really want to dob in anybody who's committed a crime in a gang. You could have the entire gang after you. So their witness accounts weren't very reliable. People just refused to talk because they were scared that the gangs would come after them for kind of letting them be subject to what the police were trying to do with them. So that's another problem. And also, we know the layout of Whitechapel is lots of dark alleyways, lots of nooks and crannies. They often had both different entrances into the alleyways. So unless you knew exactly where you were going, you could get very easily lost. It was also very dark in Whitechapel. You can imagine Victorian London it's going to be smoggy, but also especially in Whitechapel because there was a prevailing wind, which meant that all the fog and stuff in the factories were hovering over Whitechapel. So it was dark and dingy. You can imagine that it's A, hard to find a criminal, and it's also easy for the criminal to get away. So these are all kinds of problems that the police are having to deal with in Whitechapel in particular. So next time we are going to do the problems with the policing itself and how the police force is structured now that it's properly established. See you next time.